exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, which means wait, because I was listening to it, so which means happy belated birthday, Jody?
Oh yeah, my birthday is April 7th. So.
Because I remember you'd said like I just had my birthday.
Yeah.
So almost almost a month late.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome. I'm Amy.
I'm Paul.
And this is the Comics Hall. And this week we are joined by Jeff May and Jody Houser. You guys want to say hello?
Hello.
Hey.
Oh.
Hi. It's kind of hard to get. It's kind of hard to hear. You know, the normal round of applause we'd be getting in studio. So here's the
Massive.
Ooh.
The audience of thousands and thousands of people.
Yes. If every one of Jeff's books could clap for us, that would be great.
I don't know most people's names, but I can tell you what store I bought every one of these books at.
Oh,
Nice.
That's impressive.
It's not. It's actually very sad.
I was
All
gonna say,
right.
Yeah, that it's impressive, Jeff. You're on a comic book show.
Yes.
I mean, I think we're going to disagree on what the phrase "impress" means. I don't feel like anybody was impressed when I said that. I feel like they were like, "Oh, that's something," I guess.
I got it. I thought that was like a positive affirmation of your statement. So
Yeah. And it means that
Exactly.
those stores are significant and in your mind, and that is part of the comics buying experience.
I think it is.
it also means you bought them at comic shops and you're supporting your local comic shops.
Yes, or at conventions. I've bought a lot of $5 trades at cons too.
Nice.
Which usually supports local comic shops because that's who's setting up at these conventions.
Yeah, or sometimes it's supporting the actual creators right there. So
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yes, indeed. All right. So this is the first week of the 4 host format. We alluded to last week. We are kind of shifting it up while we are outside of the studio, but that doesn't mean we don't have comics news to talk about. There are some updates in the world, and then we're just going to kind of riff and see where everybody's at. We've been going week to week, seeing like what books are you reading this time, and just what is changing in the landscape of comics. I think the first kind of point of news was really cool. They are tallying up the totals from the Creators for Comics auction that we discussed last week, and currently Creators for Comics has raised over $430,000 to help support U.S. comic book stores. So that is a big chunk of change. That was a really cool kind of thing to see everybody participate in it. And Jody, you actually held several auctions, right?
yeah, I did 8, actually, one of which Jeff bought. Jeff was the winner for one of those. It is not in the mail yet, but it will be soon. Yeah, I was only originally going to do a few, but then everyone else sort of kept upping the ante on what they were auctioning and how many they were doing, and I just kept having ideas, and I ended up, because Chris Rael of IDW, he put his collection of ROM comics up, and if you know anything about Chris, like, he loves ROM more than most people love, like, whatever the thing they love the most is. Like, he is a ROM guy.
He wrote that with Christos Gage, right?
Well, no, but he had the original ROM.
Yes. Yeah, but didn't he also rewrite the when with IDW?
But yeah, so he put his and from what I understand, he has a set of ROM that he actually had rebound into hardcover books, but this was like his one set of like the comics in their original format. And he put that up, and it was like when he did that, I'm like, oh, I'm just like putting like stuff that I have up. What's something cool? And I ended up auctioning the one piece of like costume from anything that I own, which is a jacket from Orphan Black that was worn by Allison. It was like her, I'm like, I forget what the name was, but sort of like the little skating crew that she was like the mom coach of. So it's like her
that's cool.
Skating crew jacket. So yeah, I ended up putting that up because I'm like, if Chris is putting up ROM, I gotta step up.
That was a super cool thing that you did when I saw you putting all the stuff out there. I was like, oh hell yeah. And I won the trading card set.
Yeah, the Comixology did a famous comic creators and also Jody set for San Diego a few years ago, and it was like a really cool set, and I was super excited to be a trading card, and I had like a full set of those, so I put them up. And yeah, they're gonna go right there in that binder, I guess.
Going in the binder with the
Oh, the famed binder.
with
I'm
the
gonna be in a binder, guys.
1992 set of famous comic creators trading cards there.
That
And
is
this set was
incredible.
definitely styled after that one, so it should fit in nicely, I think.
Yeah, I'm so excited, and I'm so excited that I got to put some money towards.
I have it right here. This is yours. I'll just
Ooh.
pass it right through it. No, it doesn't work.
If I was going to say, it feels like you're just holding these hostage now.
No, I'm waiting. I'm waiting till everything is ready because I only want to go to the post office once right
Be
now.
correct to do so.
Well, now she's accountable to our entire audience of a nice couple of dozen people watching across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So
It's part of me. I was going to say, whenever I order something and I know someone's local, I'm always just like, well, tell me what post office you're going to go to, and I'll just go there, and you can leave it away from me, and I'll just go get it.
I feel like if people are like walking into post office in masks and doing like weird handoffs, like also that's probably not that unusual these days, but it still feels
It's
a little
The
sketchy.
world we live
Oh,
in, yeah.
we have shifted past the security of retail now, where it's just like, oh, I'm going to go to the bank. Cool. I'm going to dress like an old timey robber.
Yes.
If you're not dressing like a bank robber and going to the bank, like that's when it's a problem, which
And
is
they
so
won't-
weird.
They won't even let you in. They're just like, hey, you're not dressed in a way that we can't identify you if you rob this place. Hurry up, cover all your distinguishing features. Let's go.
oh my goodness. Yeah, things are definitely very, very interesting in the modern landscape, but those things that we're kind of willing to look past now, like, okay, this is new normal. This is Mad Max reality. It's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, and then just so also everyone knows, because we are already getting some comments on Instagram about it as well. We do have a giveaway. We are giving away the 6-scale Joker Noir. So here's how that's going to kind of work. There is going to be a secret word that will be given to you guys a little bit later, and that is going to account for extra entries. Now, the link as to where you can enter that code word, that actually comes at the end of the show. So you got to work for it. You got to watch the show, and then you'll get that. And the giveaway does end at 11:59 tonight. So I mean, the turnaround's really quick on that. And I know me and Amy were kind of talking earlier in the week about like, well, you know, what should we give away? Like, there's a lot of stuff, and it's the 80th anniversary of the Joker. So I made sure that we were doing Joker Noir. I was very passionate about. I was like, I don't even need to be on the show, but if you know, like that has to happen.
That's awesome. That Joker Noir piece, a couple things. One, super limited. So the fact that they gave you one to give away is crazy. But two, we got to do it for an episode of Unsealed and Revealed, and that thing is bananas. It is so cool.
I love the way that they translated the entire costume into those like different gray tones to really, it still has a lot of depth to the figure. And that one is one of my favorite, I think, sculpted portraits from our DC Comics 6 scales line.
Yeah, those eyes are terrifying.
They are.
The eyes are
You guys
terrifying.
are just making me want it.
Well, just enter the Gleam contest.
Well, yeah, Jody.
I don't think there's any rules that I mean, I think Paul and I are excluded, Jeff too, but I don't think there's any rules about
I'm not an employee, so
we can look the other way.
Yeah, we sure can.
I already stole one, so like it's fine.
Oh, geez.
So we're getting some comments. Sean Martin says he has both sets of the trading cards. I think he's referring to the modern sets of trading cards, the New York and the San Diego Comic-Con ones. So that's pretty cool. And then Adam Bunch, this week I have read Why the Last Man, Volume 1, Wolverine Annual, and issues numbers 1 and 2 of the Wolverine series. So those are people updating us with the books that they are catching up on. I am still behind on Daredevil, for those of you keeping track at home. I think it has been a solid month since I promised I would catch up on Daredevil and have not done so. But
and I actually caught up on it and I was not reading it, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna pick it up. And then 3 days later, I think I'd burned through the whole thing. Yeah, it was quite incredible. But again, guys, as far as the giveaway goes and everything, we'll handle all of that later. We have a whole show to do.
I've been working my way across the DC app pretty heavy. Just because they reestablished how they were organizing their comics to a way that was actually usable. So I've been using that. I'm almost through Tom King's Batman. and I
Oh,
started
wow.
it like a couple days ago, and I'm just like burning right through it. I just read some Gail Simone DC stuff that I went through. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to revisit Scott Snyder's stint on Swamp Thing that I really liked with the New 52. Got some cool stuff. I've been really
Very
diving pretty
nice.
deep on the DC app.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the like suggestion feature, I think, on the DC Universe app, because there's sometimes where when a lot of that stuff was coming out, I was trying to really cut back on comics, and now I've just officially just given up and saying I'm just going to read everything until I can't read anymore. But I was going through Justice League No Justice, and then it kind of, the next thing is it suggests, hey, these are all the titles that spin out of this, and I mean, it's fantastic. I do wish out of the I know Amy uses a few apps, Jeff obviously uses comic book apps. Do you use like any apps, Jody, when you're reading comics digitally, or is it all hardcover?
Mostly I just use Comixology primarily for
Nice.
reading digitally. I think I had a Marvel Unlimited app. I don't know if the account that might have expired. I'm so behind on reading though. Like everything I've read recently has been for projects that I can't say what I've been reading because they're projects that haven't been announced yet. But like
Ooh.
I keep meaning to like dig through my backlog, but instead I go play more Animal Crossing. So
Animal Crossing is the productivity killer right now.
Yeah,
it is, but it's so good and it's
It
so
is.
like just calming and nice.
it's digital heroin. Like Animal Crossing has been this thing now where I've just found all my friends, even my tents, all my friends have been tense, and then they're just like sedated now.
It's like a bonsai tree where you don't have to, you can trim it and take care of it the way you want to, but it also doesn't need your attention all the time, but the more that you put into it, the more you get out. I'm currently in the process of building my basement arcade, and somebody just sent me a digital, the Mahjong arcade cabinet, which is like super exciting because I saw those when I went to Japan, and so I'm like, I can build my.
I just got my basement today.
Yay!
Nice.
Today, and there's like nothing. I think there's a drum set. There's just a drum set, and there's like I put up. Oh no, I put floor lights. I put a drum set, and I put up the wallpaper that's like an ancient Egyptian tomb. So it's going to be like a cursed game room, I think.
Very nice.
My island is just, I'm trying to make it look as cursed and awful as possible. I'm buying like, I think I have about 30 dolls scattered around.
It's the little baby doll with the hood, right? Like those are terrifying.
But I needed more colors. I have like 25 red, 1 green, 1 white. I know there's a black one, but I haven't been able to get it. Someone said they had a blue one, which I also don't have. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, if I come across any cursed baby dolls, I'll send them your way.
Making me uncomfortable.
I have a anatomical model, like sort of lurking behind a tree, which looks super creepy. And then I have a skeleton doing the same. And every time I get the fossil that's just like the skull, I use it to decorate. I'm having way too much fun.
Oh, the one that's like the pseudo human skull, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
Australia or something.
A good friend of mine, Chris Ward, he used to work for Wizard Magazine, and he was doing a thing about how he's just like, oh, like during quarantine, I can finally learn a new language. And then he's like, and then Nintendo's like, if you cut down 50 more trees, you can have a fake bed. And he's like, okay.
Yeah, I will say that I think Animal Crossing could not have come out at a more perfect time. I know I've never ever seen, my girlfriend play video games, but now I have not seen her put this game down. And just, it's great to see the amount of pride that she shows me her Switch. Look what I did today. Work? Did you work? Like, no, yes and no. But
it's like Pokemon Go, but for stay.
Pokemon Stay.
I mean, yeah, pretty much. I mean, my one issue with the game is I keep changing what I want to do. So it's like I'll spend a lot of money like doing a thing and then I immediately hate it and want to do so. I keep moving houses around. I tore down one bridge and built another and then realized I built that bridge in the wrong place. So eventually I'll have to move that. And it's just like I'm very indecisive. It's like, whereas I have friends who are like, I copied my map out and gridded it out and laid out exactly where I want everything to go, and now mine looks like a proper town, and I'm just like, I don't have that level of organization for this game in me. I just want to make everything look haunted. That's it.
those are games that I know to stay away from, where I know I'm like, oh, this is going to ruin my life if I play this. I got to stay away. I don't have the personality that can ever put a game down like that, so I just steer clear.
And for everyone out there watching, if you aren't aware, big thank you to Jeff May and Jody Houser here. We do have some new people joining in from all across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, our Let Your Geese Show Facebook group, and YouTube as well. Jody, you've written some amazing stories for some pretty popular, I would say, I think people have heard of Star Wars at least once.
Yeah, lucky franchise,
Yeah.
Keeps trucking along.
I think the question that I really want to know now is, when can we expect your Animal Crossing story to come? I would love it.
I mean, it would definitely, just based on the way my island looks, it would definitely be a horror story. It would probably be like a murder mystery, and they're just finding, like, it's like the neighbor who moved out, and then you find their body like buried under a tree, and you thought it was a fossil, and you're like, no, this isn't an ancient fossil. This is the skeleton of, I don't know.
When you shake the trees and the skeleton item comes out of them, and it's like, who put that in there?
Just a neighbor's body falls out of the tree.
Oh,
what I want to know is what's up with the Easter rabbit who tormented me for a week solid.
Oh, so. Zipper is creepy, man. Like, I'm like, my island is cursed, but that's the wrong kind of cursed. That's not the kind of cursed I want.
I get to be the voice of the people that are like, what the hell are you two people talking about? Like, I get to be the voice of all those people who are like, I don't know what you're talking about, but it sounds terrifying.
So there was an Easter bunny named Zipper, and the name may have come because he had a zipper down his back that made it look like he was not actually a bunny and was someone in a bunny suit. And I believe he would say, like, I'm totally a bunny. What are you talking about? Or something along those lines. And
well, that's terrifying.
That's very terrifying.
Legitimately terrifying.
In the background from one foot to the other, just like big eyes and smiling and like watch you do stuff. And it was...
My favorite part was when you were out of his line of sight, he would stop and he would just go, like, that was the scariest part. It was like, as soon as you walked away, he would like let his guard down and be like, okay, I don't have to pretend to be a happy bunny anymore.
I hate this.
Animal Crossing.
I hate everything about that. That sounds so terrifying.
Yeah, it was a trip and a half.
They just did a new update that added a con artist pirate who sells you art that you have to determine if it's real or fake. So
I think we should
Animal Crossing. That's awesome.
We should write Nintendo and see if they can get some of our premium format figures into the game, because that would be pretty fun. That fits with their art museum theme, right?
Oh yeah. See, I think red would be like the red herring of the murder mystery in the comics. So.
Oh, I love it. This writes itself.
Yeah, Jody, you would I remember because you came on Sideshow last year. And it was right after the, I believe it was Age of the Republic
yes.
Star Wars had run, and it was right before TIE Fighter.
Yeah.
So what else have you dove into in the Star Wars oeuvre?
Well, I mean, announced, and I'm not sure what the publication dates are going to be, but I've been working on the Rise of Skywalker adaptation for Marvel.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting because... I did the Rogue One adaptation before, but this is an episode number movie that I'm doing a comic of, and there's just like such a long history of that, and it's kind of cool to, be wrapping up that saga and be a part of that comics history. So.
Do you get input on the artists that work on there, or is that just thing where they're like, and we've paired you with this person?
Usually a little more the latter, and especially with something like Star Wars, where they know who's really good at the likenesses, and they know which artists are better at like keeping up with like a strict schedule than others. So that's sort of one of the things, especially with licensed books, you really like depend on the editors to know who's the right fit for a project. Nice.
Do you know who the artist is for the Rise of Skywalker adaptation?
Oh yeah, it was Will Simpson. I always say his name wrong. He worked. It's the same artist who just worked on the Rise of Kylo Ren comic with Charles.
Oh, yeah.
So,
well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So he's very good at drawing Kylo Ren, which is great because Kylo Ren is in Rise of Skywalker quite a bit.
He was
quite a lot.
Yeah. No, I saw
yeah.
At least twice. So
yeah, he's almost like one of the main characters. It's so weird.
Now, when you did the entire series of the Age of Republic and all of those kind of one shots where you got to dabble with a lot of characters, was there one that was your particular favorite to visit?
Oh, I mean, they were all great. I'd say overall, I probably had a little bit more fun with the villains, and I think Dooku might have been the most fun to write, just because like
nice.
the whole time I was working on the script, like I tend to, especially if it's a character who's been portrayed by an actor and I've seen the performance, I try to listen to the lines I'm writing in the actor's voice in my head, and if like I can hear them saying it, then it feels like the line is, you know, correct for the character. So it was, I was writing this whole issue and just hearing Christopher Lee like talk in my head, and I was like, this is so cool.
He has, you know, my favorite line is perhaps we'll test our skills with a lightsaber. Like, oh man, someone let that line in there, and then he had to say it out loud for Christopher Lee.
But you know, he sold it because he's Christopher Lee, and I think Christopher Lee is one of the only people when he passed away in his 90s. I was just like, I couldn't be sad because I'm like, what else could he do? He lived life like to the fullest. He was just kind of like done. He was like,
yeah. Didn't he put out like a metal album when he was like 80?
Metal, no, like 90.
No, yeah.
Put out like a metal album when he was 90, and I feel like that's when you just mic drop and leave the stage, man.
Yeah, it kind of feels like his life was a metal album.
It's just bonkers.
Now, Jody, we do have a question over on YouTube for you. Someone that they read Thrawn and they read TIE Fighter and they loved it. They wanted to know, do you prefer writing the Empire? Like, do you prefer writing on that side of the spectrum there?
I like writing everything. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's like if it's Star Wars, I want to write it. I think I've just been lucky that I've got to delve into the Empire side of things. And it's interesting because in terms of the military side of the Empire, which is mostly what I've dealt with, I feel like that's maybe not something that my knowledge base is the strongest of. Like, I'm not like really great on IDing, ship model numbers and stuff, which is fine when you're working with the Lucasfilm story group, because they'll be like, it's this model, blah, 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 at this time period, because
right.
But yeah, I remember early on though, when I was working on Thrawn, we got an email from Lucasfilm that was like, here is the what all the different placards mean, like all the rank placards. And I'm just like, that's so cool. I feel like this is secret knowledge. And then I looked and it's like all over the internet.
Yeah. What was this ship? Was the Chimera, right?
Yes. And that goes back to the EU. That goes back to the books that kicked off the EU, the original Thrawn trilogy that Zahn wrote, starting with Heir to the Empire. His ship back then was the Chimera. So that was like one of the things, along from just bringing Thrawn back, they brought his capital ship back.
Right. Yeah. And then we did have another question, Jody. I think before we could probably just talk about Star Wars all day. I think.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
But before we get to some of the other questions that people have out there, we do have a question from Cody Edwards, who is one of the amazing moderators, a huge fan of yours, and she wants to know what is your. This might be too hard to answer, but what is your favorite part about writing inside the Star Wars universe? Because you did grow up as you said you're a Star Wars fan, at the end of the day. So what would be your favorite part about being able to contribute and write within that universe?
I mean, I think just being able to be a part of it and to tell stories in the world and know that you're sort of adding to the fabric of something that you love so much, and then you're actually becoming a part of it, but still being able to be a fan of it and enjoy the other areas of it too, because Star Wars is so big and there's so much. Like, I can be focused on work on the area that I'm doing, and then I can go read someone else's novel that's unrelated and just enjoy it as a fan. So I think the fact that working on these comics hasn't taken away from my ability to enjoy Star Wars as a fan, where I get to be it and still be a fan of it. And it's just a huge universe, and we all get our little corners to play in.
Quick question was, your book, your Grievous book, was that the first time anybody had ever seen what Grievous actually looked like?
He had statues of himself in his house in Clone Wars, because he's just that kind of jerk. So I don't think they were as defined as what we did in the comic, but there was at least a good solid hint of what he looked like. So that wasn't entirely, made up by us. But yeah, that was, I mean, that issue was meant to be a sort of a direct answer to that Clone Wars issue where the Jedi break into his lair with him breaking into a Jedi temple. It's just sort of the reverse in a fun way. And I just wanted him to get spanked by the Force because I don't know. He's such a great villain because he's like just hates everything about the Jedi so much and finds himself superior to them. But it's like being a living thing is what connects you to the Force, and you carved all that away, and you think you can top the Force now? Like, I don't know. There's like some logic gaps in him I find fascinating.
Yeah. I actually really liked that character. He's one of the ones that I was really glad they got to spread out over the course of the Clone Wars, because, you know, when you see him in Revenge of the Sith, you're like, oh, I like him. He's for sure gonna die. You know, like you see, like, oh, I really like this guy. It's like, wait, fool me once, George.
I really liked him the best in like that original Clone Wars, the shorts though. Like when he's sort of this like horror movie monster, except like instead of hunting teenagers at a summer camp, he's hunting Jedi, and it's just like that's cool, man.
With the Tartovsky.
Yeah.
God, that one's so good. Apparently, George did not like that one. That's
a bummer. I think I've heard that, but that still bums me out. I'm hoping it'll like pop up on Disney Plus at some point, so people who haven't seen it can get a chance to watch it. Because I think that DVDs are like long out of print.
Yeah, I have the DVDs.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, they're pretty. Watching one of the cool things is Kit Fisto underwater with his lightsaber on, and the effect, the animation of what the lightsaber looks like underwater is pretty.
Yeah, that was very cool. Also, Kit Fisto is just cool.
Yeah,
he's the best.
A lot of fun. I'm an Ayla Secura fan myself. She's my favorite.
Oh, she's great too. I mean, they're Jedi. There's like most of them are great because they're Jedi and they're on the council, so they're like the greatest of the great. I like Plo Koon. He has a cool voice in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. And Ki-Adi-Mundi was the only Jedi Knight that served on the council.
That sounds right.
The other ones were Jedi Masters. I don't know why. Oh, you know why I know this? Because of the card game.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
A lot of lore from the Star Wars CCG at the time.
And we bring it back to card games.
I can't let it go. I haven't.
You're a card man, Jeff.
Yeah, that makes me seem like a con man. That's Jeff. He plays the cards.
Now, Jody, you're also big into RPG, and that kind of ties in with the work for the Critical Role comics you've been doing. And
yes.
I have two questions, and they're dumb. So one of them is have you ever worked any of your Star Wars writing into the Star Wars RPG? If you play in that, and then the other one is Critical Role based. But
I actually have a fun story about that. So I named a lot of the characters in the Age of Republic after people in my RP that I play Star Wars RPGs with, because if you write Star Wars and you don't put your friends in there, what's the point? So I named one character after my GM because I had a character who was in the Darth Maul issue, the character who gets killed in the beginning. Darth Maul basically hunts him because he has like the potential to be Force sensitive, but not really, and he's not allowed to go hunting after Jedi or Padawan anymore. So he just like he finds like the closest thing he can. And because my GM had dropped Force powers on my character really unexpectedly in our 4th year, I named that character after my GM just because I thought it was like a nice poetry. And my GM was kicking off a new campaign that when he wanted to run like through the whole course of the Skywalker saga. So the first session he built around solving the murder of the character named after him.
Oh wow.
That was all him. That was his doing. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever.
That's so cool.
In fact, I think that's the coolest thing ever. Shows what a huge nerd I am, but like I loved that so much. I was like, even if I'm not playing in there, can I at least come and watch that session? And like I did end up playing in it, which was hilarious because I was playing like this little there's this little group of Padawans that are sort of like off like helping investigate the murder, and it's like I know who the answer is, but this character doesn't. So yeah.
Oh no, that is the most metagame of metagames.
yeah. So yeah, I haven't done too much otherwise because since I don't run the Star Wars game, I'm just a player. I don't really have the place to do that sort of input, but I've also been like very tempted to run a game for my friends if I can figure out a reason that all the characters named after them would be together. So
all right, that's exciting.
I'm always like, I wonder if there's going to be some kind of non-compete that makes it so she can't craft Star Wars stories for individual RPG games. Like, no, you have to do that for us. We pay you for that.
Well, that's not for profit, and I think what you do in your home games isn't in violation of any of that. So
But you could either profit from this or be destroyed. So that's a line from Space Wars.
And then also, so on the flip side, when games do have like, when people have such like a revered, respected game canon as Critical Role, what has that been like working on comics that kind of tie in with an established Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which is the most bizarre thing to
No, it's like there is a point I had to stop and be like, I'm literally writing a comic about someone's D&D campaign. And I was just like, we live in such a weird world, but like, and it's fun because I'm telling the stories from before the campaign was the show. So it's like those stories have already been told within the group. So they know the events, and I get the story of what happened from Mercer, and then I basically go through and transform it into a comics format. I write pretty much all the dialogue for the characters. That's probably the most fun because I'm sure someone has calculated how many hours the Vox Machina campaign is, but it's a lot. And the fact that there's just so much character work and character voice done there, I find the characters pretty easy to write because there's so much background of who they are that you've already been exposed to, and you just kind of have to rewind all the learning and growing they did and show them back when they're kind of, I don't want to say at their worst, but definitely not at their best.
Yeah. And is that another one where it's easy for you to hear the voices because of the voice actors?
Oh yeah, for sure. And again, if there's anything I feel like I'm not quite getting, just pop on YouTube, pull up an episode or pull up a, best of character line quip.
Wow.
That someone has put together. So that one's especially easy on the research side.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's that cartoon's coming out next year, right?
I think so. Yeah,
God willing. Very excited about that. I changed my ringtone to the Kickstarter reward ringtone where it's "Can you answer the call?" just on repeat from their theme song, and it delights me to no end.
I don't remember the last time I turned my phone off silent. So
oh yeah, same.
I don't even know what my ringtone is.
I only turned it off silent for the new Critical Role ringtones.
I haven't had a ringtone since 2012. It vibrates or it does nothing.
Or it's a paperweight.
I remember like for a while I had a song I liked, and then I found I couldn't listen to the song anymore because I just thought my phone was ringing. So it like ruined the song for me. So it's like I can't have songs I like as my ringtones anymore. It changes the context of what the song means to me too much.
I used to have personalized ringtones back in the Nokia brick days. And I remember my friend Matt, I had the TIE Fighter sound of him going through. And that was because I knew if he was calling me, we were going to be playing the original Battlefront 2 for the original Xbox because he lived far away. Nice. And that was our broing out. So every time I'd hear the TIE Fighter, I knew it was time to get ready to play Star Wars.
Aww.
Huh.
Yeah.
So real fast, sorry to be the bearer of logistical news here, but I did drop the code word for everyone for the Gleam giveaway. The secret code is disguise. Disguise is all one word, and it's all caps. There's no spaces or anything. You'd be surprised, but some people do ask. So it's all caps. Disguise just by itself. The Gleam link to where you can enter that's going to show up a little bit later in the show, but we do have some questions. Again, for everyone we are live from Instagram. We're on Periscope/Twitter. We're also in multiple places on Facebook as well as YouTube. And for everyone, we can see you guys responding on Instagram. I'm sorry, we just can't really type back there, but we can see everything. We actually have a question for you, Jody, from Bob of Skull, and a big fan of Mother Panic. And I can't see, but he or she would like to know, are there any core Batman characters or Batman adjacent Gotham characters that you'd ever like to write into that mythos, or one that you just haven't gotten your hands on that you definitely want to write?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think back because I killed so many and Mighty. I would, if I got the chance to write Violet coming back to the main Batman universe where all the people I killed were still alive, then I would love to have her interact with the main versions of a lot of the characters that she did in Gotham AD. So like actual, like not old depressed Joker and not Catwoman who had given up being Catwoman, and Harley and Ivy, and a lot of those characters, because I really liked those interactions, but those versions of the characters were so colored by Batman having just vanished 10 years ago, and knowing in Gotham having gotten corporatized in a really bad, evil way. So I think getting to play with the prime versions of the characters and see how they interact with Violet, who is shaded by her interactions with their alternate selves, I just think that would be a lot of fun.
That would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that would be incredible.
And Panic, it's still one of my favorite things I ever got to write. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story. Me and Amy we were talking about this last week as well, and I was bringing up to her Cupcake Pow.
Oh no.
So the reason that it was brought up is because for a lot of you that don't know, it's an amazing. What would be the quality, like that's short stories? I mean, it's a
strip comic, so I would say a web comic, but like strip comic, like sort of like Sunday paper format.
I think the first question I had when I was talking about it to Amy was like, they're both, we'll look at like Mother Panic and Cupcake Pow, incredible in their own rights, but like, how does your brain switch from one to the other? How do you approach these different, titles? And then if you're working, consecutively on like Stranger Things, which you've written, and it's incredible. How does your brain switch to that as well?
I mean, I found I like having very opposite projects that I'm working on, because most of the time I was working on Mother Panic, I was also working on Faith for Valiant, which is like sort of upbeat superhero who's so excited about being a superhero, and it's very optimistic and cheery and silly. And I think, and those two books were complete opposites, and I actually liked being able to bounce back and forth, because if I write too much dark, gritty, serious stuff, it's like I need to have something lighthearted, but at the same time, if you're doing like super funny and happy stuff, I obviously, based on my Animal Crossing island, like really dark, creepy stuff too. So I kind of need to have the other thing to go back to. So yeah, I think I work better when I have the more variety in the projects I'm working on.
I loved the Faith series, and I thought it was really interesting because she herself was like a big fan of so many things in that universe. And so it was fun to see you, who I consider to be the queen of fandom comics, because you've written almost every major fandom. It was cool to see you have a character who also kind of had that joy. And I loved seeing all the scenes in like comic book conventions and stuff.
Yeah, the fun thing about Faith was basically, and this wasn't from me, this was set up prior to me taking on the character, like pretty much all the things she was a fan of were things that I am a fan of. So the only time I ever had to actually look up a reference that she made was like, there was a point I needed her to use some like Star Trek profanity, and I'm like, is there profanity in Star Trek? I don't even know. So I did like some digging and found like a term that was in a novel that she would have read, but I have not read. So that's like the one reference that she makes that's not like organic to me. Like everything else is just like, this is something I would probably say. So, of all the characters I've written, she's probably the one who's closest to me as a person, but she's a better person than I am, I think. She wouldn't torment her Animal Crossing neighbors with horror.
It's funny to be like, you're like, I didn't really have to stretch out that much for this one. I just do one Klingon reference, and then I just kind of let it ride.
My favorite was because I tend to drop Red Dwarf references here and there, and most of my friends have not watched Red Dwarf, so I specifically put Red Dwarf references in Faith, so they would actually maybe go freaking finally watch it,
Oh geez. We do also, I think this is a good question for everyone, because I'm very I think I might know Jeff's answer and I might know Amy's answer, but I'm really curious to see everyone's answer. Is as far as comics goes, what do you all think is the most underutilized underused character that, you know, is one of the ones that deserve their own, you know, monthly.
Jeff's grabbing the reference.
Yeah, there it is. Their monthly ongoing series. Well, Jeff is, doesn't even need to dig through it. He's got it.
I could have bet you money on that one and I would have won.
I think I talked about my choice last time I was on the show.
Oh, jeez.
But Wild Thing from the MC2 universe. Still my favorite random Marvel character.
That's a good one.
Who I really want to write.
I'm like, well, there's others. Hold on.
Also Mother Panic, obviously, because I want her to have a book again.
Yes.
That I'm also writing.
Yeah, I think we would all love that, please.
Yeah, and I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Elsa Bloodstone, man.
Yes.
I love Elsa.
So good.
I would like Hitman to come back.
Ooh.
I would love to see Garth and John do Hitman again.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Yeah, I would also love. I don't know why I didn't go Elsa Bloodstone for you, Amy. But yeah, that's
great. What did
great.
you think I was gonna say?
I don't remember at this point now. Because my brain's already thinking of my answer, and my answer would be Wildcat. I love Wildcat. I think Ted Grant is like one of the most underutilized characters, but I think he's gonna be in Stargirl. So
yeah, his mentor
incredible
existence is really great.
As a huge Catwoman fan, I always loved that role that he played in her life. And whenever he popped up in her books, it was just always a delight to see him.
He's pretty fantastic in the Catwoman meets Sylvester and Tweety comic as well.
That one I haven't read yet, so
yeah, I haven't read that either.
I'm sure it's it's buried in my to read piles, of which there are 12, I think now.
Yeah, there's also a comic that came out in the early to mid 90s in DC that that I think the creators now got the rights back to it. DC didn't publish on it, but there's a character called Major Bummer. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Jody, you remember Major Bummer? Major Bummer was essentially the quintessential Gen X kind of dude. He was like he was wearing like the flannel tied around his waist, so indicative of the time. And he got these like massive Superman godlike powers, but he didn't want to be a hero. And like stuff kept happening around him, and like everything was a complete nightmare. And he's just like, I just want to watch MTV and chill and relax. And it was such a brilliant idea, and it was done so well. And it was, I mean, I'm sure people have revisited that sort of idea, but it was really kind of the first to have the like beyond reluctant hero. And it was it was just so good. And it was Doug Mahnke and I forget who the other creator was, but just an utterly unbelievable story that just has fallen by the wayside. And
look that up then, because that actually sounds like a lot of fun, but it also sounds like it's a very good sort of snapshot of the era too.
It really is. Yeah,
a little time capsule.
It's really great. Hitman's a good example of that too. I think the sort of like, oh, this is when people are getting fun and experimental with their books, and it's a blast.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was. I don't think that that's kind of circling back. I'd like to see maybe with some newer heroes, people taking more chances with like these completely weird origins, like you were saying, Jeff. But I think
it takes a chance. Big, like if you're not taking a chance with your book and you're just publishing the same thing over and over and over again, I'm like, well, what's the point? Now you're just collecting a paycheck.
Right. Yeah, and that's not. I mean, as a writer, I find a project like that where you don't really get to stretch yourself and do something new and interesting, and maybe even something that's a little scary for you to do because you haven't done it. Like, it's not something that is as much fun to work on.
Yeah, like there wouldn't be as much passion, I feel.
Yeah. So I think when people are really trying the crazy things that they're not even sure they can pull off, those are some of the best comics.
If you're not doing something that's going to make at least a couple people on the internet angry, are you doing something at all?
Exactly.
That's why, I mean, not for nothing, but I love The Last Jedi because it took risks. And I was like, I respect this from a storytelling perspective. Like, I really enjoyed it because I was like, that was risky and I love it.
And it was interesting. I went to a Q&A with Ryan Johnson during the run, and he answered questions for 90 minutes, and anything anyone asked him, he had like a whole long answer with all his thought process and everything. So even
Wow.
like all the chances you're saying he took, like they were all things that he thought about in detail, which I think is, again, always the stuff that's done with intention is always the most interesting to me.
I love it because I have this thing where I'm not a fan of fan theories. I'm always just like, hey man, I feel like that is, you're trying to create a false sense of expectation and then negate the work of the creators. I'm like, just, this should be
Enjoy.
a roller coaster. You
Yeah.
know, you can't steer it. You just ride it and it's fun and then you're done. So I loved in The Last Jedi when they took those two fan theories, the Rey's origin and then who's Snoke, and they were just like, yeah, we're gonna throw that out. That was a red herring, and I absolutely loved it. And they kind of circumvented back and dealt with it, but I was like, oh, it would have meant the world to me to just have it be left out there.
But I mean, I think that's also a thing that you see a lot in comics, especially when you have new creators coming in and new creative teams taking over, is that what interested the previous creator might not be as much of interest to the new creator, and they're going to have their own take on what they want the characters to do and be. So I think in some ways the sequel trilogy feels the most like a comic book series of any of them, because it does have those different voices coming in and out.
Yeah. It's sort of reminds me of like the X-Men kind of a way, where like they would have these storylines and then they would just get buried and forgotten, and then it really would take a writer that wanted to revisit these storylines that were these sort of like mysteries plaguing the X universe for 20-25 years, and then who's the mystery Summers brother, and then like, well, somebody's gonna roll up here and figure it out, and then because that's what you want to do. And like, I like that, but I also like the idea that some people are just like, I don't care and I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, no, I think you can tell like some of the writers in comics who are definitely like the old school fans, that it's like, I've been thinking about this for 2 decades. I'm finally going to get to answer it myself. So I kind of love those stories too.
Oh, they're really great. I love seeing that sort of take shape and see people's passions and be like, I also like the idea where people have books that they've always wanted to write, and then they cut their teeth on other things and do it so well that they're like, okay, now I demand this book. I want you to give me Fantastic Four or something like that. Hell yeah, man, you've earned it.
Yeah. I would. I'm sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Oh no, you go. You probably had something that was more related. Go for it.
No, I was just gonna ask, Jody, with being from Amy, so that's official, being dubbed the queen of fandoms. Are there any of those that you would say, in the vein of taking risks and such, that you felt like for you personally was like the biggest risk to jump and say like, okay, I'm being Doctor Who or Star Wars, that you felt like, okay, this is big?
I mean, probably Spider-Man, because the Spider-Man book I worked on, Renew Your Vows, was its own universe, so there weren't really any restrictions on what I could do, because I didn't have to worry about continuity with other books. And also growing up, I was more of an X-Men kid than a Spider-Man kid. I feel like in the 90s, you were kind of one or the other for the most part. So I was the X-Men kid. So like all my back knowledge from growing up is much more X-Men than Spider-Man, even though I also love Spider-Man and I watched every single episode of that animated series back then. So I think sort of getting to play in that universe, I was like, I kind of felt like, no, they meant to give me an X-Men book, I think. Spider-Man. And I mean, I had a blast with it, and there were a lot of X-Men who showed up in it. But I mean, and it was intentional, because it's one of the things I love about Spider-Man in particular is like how he interacts with other characters in the Marvel universe. He's kind of like the guy who just knows everyone, and maybe some of them are friends and maybe some of them don't get along so great. So getting to play with him and Wolverine, which is a dynamic I've always loved, because it's like Spider-Man clearly really wants to be Logan's friend, and Logan kind of, depending on his mood in the day, is like either just like scram or fine, I'll give you some advice from my 120 years, 150, however old he is, 5 million years of living, and getting to play with the dynamic of them as being both dads in this universe and how that changed things was a lot of fun.
It's I was gonna say, it's interesting with Spider-Man, because I think you really nailed it, where it seems like half of the Marvel universe, they like roll their eyes whenever Spider-Man shows up. Like, it's just like, this guy again. All right, get ready for some B-level jokes. All right, here it comes. like he's like an annoyance.
But
Yeah.
but again, everyone knows him because he's involved with everything, and like, you know, a lot of people might not look past the jokes to see like he's like an amazing hero and also like really freaking powerful compared to what you might think of a guy named Spider-Man being. So yeah, it's a fascinating. It's again the sort of rapport with the rest of the universe is I think one of the most exciting things about him.
Yeah, and I think the fact that there are so many different people who can just relate to certain aspects of his life, you know, like it's like, hey, I'm also not paying my rent right now. Like this is great, you know. So I mean, I thought it was fantastically written. But we do, I think a question that has come up all over now, and I was kind of saving it because I know it could be a bit of a weighted question there as far as the answer goes, but it always seems that when comic book creators come on, people want to know, well, what are you reading? Like, what are some things, like, do you personally, like you said, you're you know, you're a big X-Men fan, like, are you reading like Hickman stuff now, or is that stuff that like you have to like, you know, bring yourself up to? Or do you?
Oh, I mean, House of X and Powers of X was like the one thing that last year I was briefly caught up on because it was so good, and I was just I was so deep into it, and I again have huge stacks of every of the you know, the series that have followed up to catch up on at some point during this being locked at home. But yeah, no, I really loved those books, and the not to spoil things, but the usage of Moira McTaggart was fascinating, and that's the type of storytelling that just like I finish the comic and drop it, and like I don't want to write anything anymore because I'm like, it's too good, I can't do this. But in terms of other things, again, like I said, I'm very behind on everything, but Kieran and Stephanie's Die, which is a comic about playing an RPG in a sense, is brilliant, and that's the one thing I'm recommending to everyone right now. And I've also played the RPG with Kieran like 3 times now, and it's so fun.
What class did you play?
Oh, I'd have to look back. I was a knight 2 of the times. I was an emotion knight twice.
Oh,
and I was the fool 1 time, I believe.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love that. I love that world so much, and that Kieran was like, yeah, and here's a whole game system to prove that I'm not BSing
like,
most of this.
Like, really good. It's not just like a thing that I made to tie into the comic because why not? It's like, no, this is actually really good, and I'm playtesting it a lot and revising the rules as needed and actually caring a lot about it. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So good. That's another thing. Like, oh, why didn't I think of doing something like that? Fine. Again, I don't know if I could put together an RPG system though, so that's definitely something Kieran should be doing and not me.
Well, I will say, I think before we wrap and I drop the link for the giveaway and everything, I think the most important question that everyone, you know, maybe being me and just Amy, and probably Jeff as well, want to know is how is baking coming along?
Oh gosh.
We were so interested, we added it into our social post.
I know, and I'm like, I've baked 2 things in the past 7 weeks, however long I've been locked up. No, so what happened was a number of years ago, I like got really into the idea of making bread, and I got yeast, and I made the no-knead bread in the Dutch oven. It was great, and then I never made bread again, aside from like pumpkin bread. I make pumpkin bread pretty frequently because I'm good at that, and it's good to bring for Thanksgiving and stuff. So then everyone was baking bread, and I'm like, oh, I barely have any flour. I don't have any yeast. And then I got some flour from a friend, and I'm like, I do have beer. And I just opened this beer, and it's fine. It's not great. It's not bad. It's huge though. So I looked up beer bread, and I made some beer bread with like 8 ounces of the beer. And that came out pretty good. And then I found some yeast, the yeast from the no-knead bread in the back of my fridge that was past its expiration date. But I tested it, and it's still alive and fine. So I made a focaccia last week, and I'm going to make another batch this weekend because it was really good.
Oh wow.
And it's that Bon Appetit has a like, you won't believe how easy this is, which is like a good sign of something that like I will actually do. Because if you're like, it's so easy, even an idiot could do it, I'd be like, well, I'm not an idiot, so I'll do it then. Yeah, but no, it was really easy, and if you're lucky enough to have yeast and flour right now, highly recommended.
I bought too much flour by accident.
There's no such thing right now. You can trade that for goods and services.
It's worth its weight in gold.
I have a lot of flour. I ended up she was like, Val, my girlfriend's like, if you can find flour while you're at the store, get it. And so I got 2 of the bags. They were like he was like still loading them up, and I just grabbed the thing, and I grabbed like 20 pounds of flour, or 10 or 20 pounds.
That's not actually that much, I think. My friend who gave me the flour got a bag at Costco before everything went crazy. So she had like 25 or 50 pounds of flour. So she just gave me like 3 gallon Ziploc bags with some flour in them. So I probably got about 10 pounds from her.
Yeah.
So
it's an aggressive amount, I was told. Of all the things, this is too much. We've actually
the question is, how is your baking going?
Oh, it's I'm not gonna try that. My skills aren't. Val, on the other hand, is killing it. She is using the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge cookbook that we got when we were doing the cooking show, and then we also have a cookbook called Thug Kitchen that we picked up while we were.
Oh, okay.
Awesome.
And they're both, the recipes are fantastic, and we've been having a lot of fun with them.
I've been meaning to get the Galaxy's Edge cookbook, and like now that I can't go to Galaxy's Edge, I should definitely do that.
I know.
Pick up stuff.
The Parwan Nutra cakes are very easy to make, and they are quite tasty. They essentially are like little fried hummus patties almost. And so
that Mandalorian stew you guys made.
Dude, we have made it more than once since we.
I was gonna say it looks so good.
Where are you finding Mandalorians to put in it, though?
That's a Jeff May question.
Waka waka. No, it was
nervous
good.
tick.
It was it's made with chicken thighs, and I'm not usually a chicken thigh guy. I'm usually a white meat guy, and it was just so good.
Okay, well, I am not a white meat person, so that sounds extra good to me.
Yeah, it's really good. It's the recipe itself is like, you read it and you're like, well, this is going to make for an interesting stew, and then you read it, you're like, oh damn, this is so good.
Nice. I will be ordering that cookbook for delivery today.
Woohoo!
And then cooking things out of it.
Oh yeah,
that's how that works.
There's a lot of great stuff. There's
also
also
the step-by-step plan. Yeah.
Well, there's also
the things I cook, because that's what you do with them.
There's cocktails in the back too.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, there's desserts. There's it covers some pretty heavy ground.
Just in case you couldn't get a reservation to the cantina.
You didn't expect the comic book show to turn into an advertisement for the Star Wars cookbook, but here we are. Sometimes life.
Hey, it works.
It's Sideshow license. It's fine. We're good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Relevant.
You got Paul's dropping a link for the Sideshow Star Wars cookbook in Galaxy's Edge. Just check that out. Links below. How you have to do that, or else you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you. I did already actually before we sign off, everyone. I did drop the link for the Gleam giveaway for everyone with the secret code word disguise. You can go ahead and actually get yourself some extra entries into that. Give yourself the best possible shot for that. Again, secret code word is disguise, and the link has been dropped on all of our platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebooks, and YouTube. But thank you, everyone, for hanging out. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me
so much. Yeah, thanks. This was a lot of fun to just. I'm glad that even though the updates from the comic book world are scarce, there's still so much to be finding and like new to you comic book day, and checking out our back issue bins or catching up on Animal Crossing while that stack stares us down.
But yeah, also support your local comic shops if they're doing any sort of pickup and delivery. Oh, there is a website. Let me make sure I got the website right, that people can check to see what shops in their area are doing delivery. I think it's 28pageslater.com, but let me double check. That's been sorted. All the comic shop information has been sourced by comic creators. Yeah, it's the Comic Industry Collective's website. It's 28pageslater.com, so you can look up comic shops that you can order from right now.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I'll definitely make sure I drop that in all of our social channels here.
I would pony on that with check out the Hero Initiative as well, which is a great charity that helps out comic creators in need, of which that number is growing.
Yes, unfortunately. So
and
definitely good cause to support right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I may, May the 4th is coming up. So if you are looking for some Star Wars comics that you can get ordered, ask your local store if they've got some of Jody Houser's illustrious Star Wars canon, because that is definitely something that you can keep occupied with for May the 4th coming up soon.
Which is Rogue One, Thrawn, TIE Fighter, Age of Republic, and then also I'm in one of the Poe Dameron trays because I wrote the annual. I think it's volume 6, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
All righty. That's a full slate. I think
that's a lot of reading.
One of my favorite comments, and I know we're wrapping here, but JJ Joe said that you humanized TIE fighters for him, and now every time he sees one get blown to smithereens, he feels bad.
That makes me feel lovely. Making people sad is like the coolest thing you can tell a writer. You've given me feelings where there were none before.
You cut me deep, Houser.
It's like you've been Jodied. Welcome. All right, everyone. Thank you all so very much. Jody, thank you so much for joining us. Jeff, as always, thank you for joining us as well. Nice. Amy, it's good to do a show with you again.
Yeah, welcome back, Paul.
Yeah, no longer sick, so that's good. I'm feeling great. But yeah, again, thank you guys all so much from wherever you're watching. We really appreciate you guys staying inside and being safe, but also basically just hanging out with us and everyone else in this inside collective that we have right now. Tomorrow we do have another episode of See It, Win It. I'll be on that show. Brad Gage, fellow Sideshow host, he'll be on that show. We're going to be taking a look and giving away the Shadowland variant for the Daredevil 6 scale. Yes. I was actually really upset that one's not coming to me, so I can show off, but whatever, it's fine. I'll be better off screen. All right, everyone. Thank you all so very much. Again, as I've said, everyone stay inside, stay safe. And as always,
we'll see you guys next week on the Comics Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget to let your geek side show.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Nailed the outro, as always. Nailed it.
Yeah, you guys are professional.
I was like, if Paul thanks them one more time, I'm going to shut his feed down.
Yeah. Sierra said that she's going to take a drink every time I say, thank you guys so much.
Oh, I'm sorry.